What's the meaning of forever when we've grown so far apart? When it's easier to sever than...
Well, I first met Levon in the 80s at the Lone Star Cafe in New York. I'd play there pretty often, you know, with Buddy Miller, with people like Doug Somm, and a lot of, there was sort of a house band there, you know, different formations of different house bands at the Lone Star, where we back up artists that came into town and stuff like that, and play with our own bands. It was a very vibrant scene back then, and the band, that configuration of the band used to play there, and Levon would play with the Cape Brothers sometimes, and so I met Levon and Danko and Richard Manuel and Garth, you know, but it was more a casual hangout partying thing than musical collaboration, you know. So fast forward, I'm playing 97. I started with Bob Dylan's band, and during that time, Tony Garnier, who is Bob's bassist, was sitting in on a few shows with Levon and the Barn Burners, his blues band, and Tony asked if I'd come and sit in, and I did, and I hooked up with Levon again. Fast forward a few years later, I'm producing a record for the Dixie Hummingbirds. It's their 75th anniversary record, and the guy who owned the label, Jerry Claus, suggested that we get Levon and Garth to play on the record, and Tony as the rhythm section, and that was a great idea. They came, played on the record, and that's where Levon and I sort of established a musical relationship, you know, a partnership, and because we got along great in the studio, so, okay, fast forward again. I quit Dylan's band in '04, and a month later, Levon calls and says, I heard you left Bob, come on up to Woodstock and let's make some music. He was just getting these Rambles going at the same time, you know. And during that time, too, after I left Bob's band, Teresa and I were just putting our foot in the water with this duo thing, you know, and we went down, Levon's daughter, Amy, and friend and people she worked with in the band, Ola Bell, would sing at this little bar down on the Lower East Side, and Teresa and I went down and sang a couple of tunes, and Amy heard us and suggested that Teresa come up to the barn. So the Rambles are getting started, and we started the Dirt Farmer record then, and that was just an incredible experience. You know, it was Amy and Levon and Teresa, myself, and Byron Isaacs on bass, and
Justin Gwip behind the board.
Yeah, and you know, other guys from the band, and it was the greatest musical recording experience we've ever had, because there was no goal except to sit there and record music, have a good time playing music and record it. And if we got a deal, if a record came out of it, great, you know. And it turned out that it really did. And
I said it was a music utopian sandbox of creativity. It really was.
Yeah.
Safe, and everybody was really excellent at their job, and he just pulled the very best out of everybody.
I mean, I imagine Levon was always had that spirit, but at this time of his life, it was like all the excess baggage that you carry around when you're trying to make a career out of music. You know, it seemed like he just wanted to drop all that and get down to the pure basics of making music, and what the healing and the joy and the fun and the sharing and the community and the whole thing about it. You know, and that was the spirit of these Rambles and the records we did with him, you know.
I always say it was like the revivals I grew up in, as far as the vibe of the windows were thrown and the doors were thrown open, even, you know, in the heat or whatever, and the place would be packed to the gills. Outside there were a lot of people roaming around, and the music just full on with only the best spirit about it, not about industry, not about career. It was just the music for the sake of music, and it was a great. I came late one time because I'd been on a trip and I was just getting in the kind of the maybe between the first act and then before Levon went on, and it really pulling up. It just really reminded me of those revivals when I was growing up, where people just throw their head back and sing. You know, it's just make a joyful noise.
Yeah, and in the summertime, sometimes when the AC would go out, they'd pass out those fans just like they would sit in the church pews. And a lot of people would say that.
I made sure they had those.
Yeah, right. A lot of people would say when they walked out of there, it felt like to them like it was going to church, you know, and
not a lot of egos flying around.
Yeah, there was a real absence of self-involvement and ego up there, and that
came from him.
It did, yeah.
That, you know, it comes down from the top.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
The first real luminary that came up and performed with us there was Emmylou. You know, she came and just sort of set the template for what that could be like, you know, and then people just kept coming.
Elvis Costello, Ricky Skaggs,
yeah,
just on and
Alan
on.
Toussaint, John Prine, Nick Lowe, yeah, yeah, Kinky Friedman, and people would just come because it was, like Teresa says, a safe place to do what you love to do, and it was. The audience, it was a relatively small audience. I mean, if it was packed to the gills, it was maybe 200, 250. And they were just as essential a part of this experience as the band was, you know. And
that thing.
Yeah. It was like we were all doing this together. It was a communal experience.
There would be kids sleeping on pallets in the floor, dogs sleeping at Levon's feet in the floor, and I'm sorry, spoiled for life having 5 horns behind you.
Yeah.
And it's spoiled for life. And he liked the band to be tight around him. And we played really big stages, took it Ramble on the road. He made him pull it all in tight, and that was a joy too. Mess your ears up, but it was a joy to play. That
Emmylou night was magic.
I couldn't sleep all night. It's like Christmas morning. I couldn't. After it was over.
Yeah, it just gave. I don't know. It's almost like she bestowed her blessing on the place, you know. And then we were cool from there, you know. And yeah, that was great. And then the night Ricky Skaggs and his band pulled up in their big bus coming down this tight road to Levon's
they
bar.
Wouldn't pull the bus in the tight road. This is my favorite thing. They wouldn't pull the bus in because they were afraid of scratching it. They hadn't cut the trees back for the big buses yet, because it's just a little dirt road down into his house. And they walked in with their instruments.
Yeah, right.
And I just love the image of them walking in, with all of their instruments on their back.
Yeah, and man, those guys tore it up. And Jackson Browne came with all his guitars, you know, took up half the room with the guitar.
We were in awe. The whole, just a wall of guitars.
Yeah. The Black Crowes came in one weekend and took over the building. We made music together, and they
got that record out.
Did a live record there. And one of the last things, and this has to come out, was we did a couple of days with Mavis and her band, Mavis Staples and her band. They came and both bands played together, and it was filmed and recorded. And one of these days we're going to work out the business angle of this and release this stuff. And it was Levon and Mavis making music together. That's something you want to hear.
Well, what I remember is the last touring show we did. It might have been the last show we played with him, was at Tarrytown.
That's right. Yeah.
That stands out.
Yeah, it was a Tarrytown Music Hall, and Levon was down. You know in the dressing room.
Yeah, in the dressing room there were a couple of us in there, and he's sitting on the bench, and it's just a humble little tiny dressing room. It's a great place to play, but you know it's an older place, and he's got his head down. He's just sitting quietly. It's right before the show. And out of the blue, he looks up and raises his head and says, all I ask for is just those 2 hours on stage. It was heartbreaking because his voice was so
and he was so
fragile.
sincere about it.
It was, it was heartbreaking. And then we're on stage doing When I Go Away, which Larry wrote, and we would all pick up the song. We would share singing the songs when he was out of voice, which was mostly towards the last couple of years. And Larry did When I Go Away, and you pick it up.
Yeah, I was singing, you know, I had been singing the song, and Levon playing great, and song starts, I come in with the first verse, we get through it, go to the chorus. Second verse comes up, I open my mouth, and I hear this strong voice, sounds just like Levon, come busting into that second verse, and he was sitting there at the drums just giving it up, like he had this new burst of energy that he hadn't had, and he was going to sing it, you know, and he finished the song from there, and
I thought we were going to levitate.
it was like chills. It was like we, for that few minutes, we felt like we had him back, and like everything was going to be okay. You know?
Felt like a miracle moment. It really did.
Yeah, and it's on YouTube. That performance is on YouTube, and
we came back and did the encore of Gloryland. That was a cappella.
Yeah, we did.
It just
Ralph Stanley's version of Gloryland was the encore a cappella, and that was the last song Teresa and I did with Levon was that performance there.
I think that may be right.
Yeah, and because there was a ramble after that, but we were out.
We were out with somebody, and we missed that one.
And we missed that very last one, but it was with Los Lobos. Were at the barn, and then we came back, and Levon had to go right in the hospital, and he lingered there for about a week, and we were with him in the room when he passed, and with Amy and Teresa and I, and
he stayed long enough for all the band to get there.
Yeah, yeah.
True story.